So today we're together with one of our favorite people. It's Charlotte Addison. First of all, thank you for joining us on our podcast.
Thank you for asking me.
So as we are a full-time traveling family, we often spend time and co-live with other families. And Charlotte and her families are one of the families we really love to stay together with. We have already spent 1.5 months together, and inside the next year, I think we will have lived together for 4 months, and it's a big joy.
Yeah, and it's very new for us, and it's worked really well.
Yeah,
Well, it came as kind of a surprise, didn't it? I
that
mean,
they were nice.
no, just that it would be this much.
Yeah.
It's great when we meet a lot of great people while traveling, but sometimes you just find that perfect match.
Yeah.
Where everyone, and it's not about, I mean, I'm not trying to put down all the other people we love, but in your family, your children and our children and us, the adults, we just level so well, and the co-living has been so easy. And yeah, so it's quite overwhelming to get such great friends so fast. I mean, literally, I can't say literally, but yeah, I can. 3 months ago, we didn't know each other, and now I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we want everyone else to get to know you.
Yes, and one more part of it is as world schoolers, full-time travelers, we are now in Krakow, where we are attending a world school pop-up hub. And we actually brought 2 of your teams, and we are very grateful because they are a big joy to hang out with. And yeah, we laugh a lot and read Shakespeare in the evening. And it brings me back to the first question, a long merry-go-around before we get there, which is, we kind of met each other, but didn't have a lot of talks back in 2019, where your family and our family attended Lady Liberty's World School Summit in 2019 in Granada, which is, I think, a life-changing moment for many who was there. How did you actually end up there?
Wow, yeah, that was a huge pivot for us. So I am like naturally nomadic and never quite feel at home. I feel at home everywhere, but never quite found home, if that makes any sense at all. I can make well, yeah, I'm sure it does. I can make myself at home anywhere, and I have done really, or we have done really successfully. But we were, yeah, it's almost hard to just talk about 2019 without like the prequel, but like the short story is that we had embarked on renting. We've moved in a similar area for quite a long time, and we embarked on renting a house for a year, and 3 months in, the landlord said, by the way, we've sold to property developers, and like my heart sank. And because I thought like, oh, maybe this is it, maybe this is where we'll put down roots and like build more of a community and a life. And the kids did have their little clubs they went to with their friends. And yeah, I was basically from that point searching for something else. And I was looking for a bus. I almost bought like 3 American school buses, and they never quite worked. I'd like drawn the plans out, like just, I was always searching for something. And then I was like, we should go traveling. We should do this. I was just always coming with different ideas. And then I don't know how Lainey's meetup came across my path. I'm in all of the home edy, unschooling, world schooly groups, so I'm sure it just appeared one day. And I think it wasn't until about the August that I just said, we're just going to go traveling. We're just going to leave and go traveling. And my husband, Anthony, was like, okay, like he is with all of my ideas, just goes along with them all. And yeah, and then we left mid-September and planned a few things, but the only real hard and fast plan we had was to be in Granada by, I think it was like the 12th of October that year. We hadn't even booked our accommodation. I booked it on the way from like Valencia in the car and found our accommodation that way. But it was a very pivotal, life-changing moment. really. Yeah, I remember you guys very well, but we never fully had conversations. I remember Jesper with the pan drum and sitting in circle with you, Cecilia, but yeah, just we didn't. I just remember following you online since then, just and I know our friends are mutual and I was like Facebook friends or with the comrades. I just followed your journey. But yeah, that was yeah, a very pivotal moment in our lives.
And what about the whole idea of homeschooling? So your oldest is 16, but what happened? What made you go down this route?
Okay, so yeah, they both of my older two, 15 and 16, only a year apart. When I had a friend, long story short, again, I had a friend who had a Montessori school, and there was only like 10 to 15 children on the books, and I put Arabella, yeah, I put my daughter's name down, and then Freddie arriving a year later when it came for the time for, I don't think she'll mind me using her name, I'll ask her, but Arabella, to go there, my friend said, "Oh, well, we don't have room for Freddie next year," and I was just like, "Oh." That kind of, I was like, because I just saw this small little, I didn't know anything about homeschool except from probably films and like the weird kids were homeschooled. Like that was my perception of homeschooled kids from yeah 90s films probably. And yeah, so it just kind of threw a spanner in the works. I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? And Anthony's mum was a nursery school leader at a prep school, a private school in England where they wear ties and blazers and little hats and bags and all of this stuff. And I had no concept of what a school should or would look like. So she was like, why don't you come and have a look around? And she was like, we're very Montessori based and da 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 da. And I was just like, okay. I mean, it just had toys. I just saw toys and play areas and small little groups within a larger group. And I didn't know any different, to be honest. So I was just like, yeah, okay. And then because it's the done thing, we tried to put them in the younger class before they would go with their nana. And there were tears. I tried to go back to university. There were tears and there was not wanting to go. And I was just like, okay, this isn't right. So I was like, I don't need to go back to university. It was a want to finish my degree. But I don't need to do it right now. So I was just like, okay, this isn't going to work. They're not happy. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, this isn't going to work. And then the following year, it was Arabella going in with her grandmother. So she was obviously perfectly happy to go into that room. And it was a couple of mornings a week. Um, yeah, and very long story short, then the next year came and she wasn't going in with her grandmother, but Freddie was. So Freddie was happy. Arabella again wasn't, and I wasn't. I just had this like incongruence of like dropping my child with a basic stranger. But in my head, it was like, but this is what everybody does. This is what you do. I went to school, Anthony went to school, everyone I know went to school. Um, but she was crying, I was crying. There was like, why am I doing this? But I didn't know that there was any other option. Um, so that was like reception age, like 4 or 5. And then we just ended up in the train of school for a couple of years. But we also ended up in the struggles that come with that as well, like the being forced into small boxes because it's the done thing. Like you must fit into this round peg, but you're square or whatever. And I kind of kept going along with it, but it was causing all of this friction. We had, yeah, just more friction at home of like, well, I've got to force you to do these things because I'm being sent home a book that tells me you should be doing this. And then it was like extra lessons for one of them and extra this and like extra help essentially to get them to the place where the schools thought they should be. And we kind of got stuck in that a little bit. And then after the birth of my third child, in 2014, about 3 to 6 months in, I kind of looked out the window one day and I was like, this is a very nice life, but it's not mine. I felt like I was living a slightly nicer version of like my mum's life with maybe a little bit more connection and maybe a sort of like nicer relationship with my husband and my kids and that kind of thing. I was just like, this isn't my life. And I just set the ball. I was like, right, we're going to take the kids out of school and move to Spain. And apart from that, I didn't have a plan, except taking them out of school and move.
I mean, I have 2 steps. All right.
Very daring.
You know which one to do first. I love it.
Yeah, I was just like, because I lived in Spain as a teenager and I'd only moved back at 22 to meet Anthony, or 21, and my mum was still there and I still had my friends there and my little community, and I was just like, yeah, let's go to Spain. And that was kind of the beginning of...
Was it a moment? I'm curious. Was it really looking out the window, literally sitting there with number 3 in your lap? And
it was a literal moment of, this is not my life. Like, it's very lovely. I'm sitting in a really nice detached house, because isn't that's what everybody wants in England, with a garden, and my kids are in private school and I drop them off at school and I go and exercise, and then I come home and I sit on the sofa with the baby after I've cleaned the house and everything's perfect and back in its place, because there's no kids to play with it, and just waiting for them to come home all day, and just like, well, what do I do now? And I was always the mum that loved the school holidays, because we would either travel or I'd take them to London. Like, we were always in the museums doing stuff, or going to London, or going to Spain to visit my mum, or we were just never just at home. It was like I was living for holidays or living for weekends, and then I was just like, okay, why am I actually doing this? And yeah, and then Spain happened, and I didn't really have a plan when I got there. I remembered ordering a book on Amazon. Can't actually remember which one. It was probably a John Holty type book, and it came, they say, well, why don't you buy this bundle? And I bought a bundle of books, and a couple of other books came, and I read it, and I was kind of introduced to like radical unschooling, and it kind of just pivoted everything. Kind of went a bit left for a while and then brought it back a little bit. But yeah,
I think that pendulum works for most of us. You come from somewhere, some are lucky enough to be introduced to the concept of unschooling before they have children, maybe even as teenagers, maybe even they are unschooled, and then it can be a more stable thing. But well, I just noticed how you said, I did this because this is the thing you do. You knew about home education. When we put our first child in school, we didn't even know it was a thing. I never heard about it. The school we chose and the life we chose was the freest thing I could even imagine. And the reason we're doing this podcast is to open that imagination for more people out there, because it's really too bad that you don't even know. And then once we knew, things changed.
Yeah.
But then it goes a little, it's quite,
yeah.
It's not just looking out the window and make a 2-step plan. Or at least when you arrive at the second step and you're walking into the unschooling, that's a very chaotic moment in life. Everything changes.
Yeah, well, we kind of arrived in Spain, and I thought I wasn't sure if I would put them in the Spanish system yet. And then I went to the local school and I learned a bit about the Spanish system, and I was just like, oh, I'm not really sure I can put my kid, not even to learn the language. I was like, it's not really worth putting them through that, because they're quite regimented and militant, and probably more so than the English system in many ways. Like, the English system is more, it's a different setup. It's kind of looks quite pretty on the outside. And I also tried to sit down. I bought workbooks, tried to sort of like, let's do some workbooks. Just met with like huge resistance. And so then we just started like doing, like, they would paint, like play football, we'd do just anything. They're just going out. We were near the beach. We were like near Marbella. We had like, it was a perfect like city beach living all rolled into one. It was a very nice thing. And yeah, it was just the books kind of just completely pivoted it. But it was a very much like, oh, we've been living like this, going to completely throw that out, throw all the rules out, throw everything out. And it then took years to kind of find the path that worked better for each child, I think. That came after, because I have 5 now. But yeah, it's been a ride.
How do you feel about some people would probably look at it as she threw her education out the window. She didn't use it for anything. Because you didn't use it for the pre-designed job, it is still knowledge you have obtained, of course. But this whole personal throwing the idea of how life should be out the window with the education and all that, how had this worked for you?
In my education or theirs? Mine.
In your life, yeah.
To be honest, I've never stopped learning. And even my sort of way into university was slightly different to other people. I didn't do A levels, which are normally a prerequisite. I just wrote a letter and explained my life experience. I had quite a huge life experience before the age of like 18. So at 21, I'd had an extra couple of years of a journey. I mean, it's different now that at 41 looking back at that, but I'd done a lot or seen a lot or experienced a lot emotionally and mentally and probably spiritually as well. And I wrote about that and they interviewed me, and I kind of have told the kids this as well, because they say you have to have A levels to get into university, but I already proved that wrong, because they saw that I was articulate, they saw that I could write, they saw that I could explain a life experience and how it would help in a psychology degree, and they let me into university. And I did a lot of learning. I'd never really written an essay before I went to university, but I taught myself because I had a deep desire to learn how to write essays. And I wasn't the best at maths at school, but I had to learn maths because I had to do statistics and all of that stuff. So I already felt like I had, and I didn't go back to my physical degree, but I never stopped attending courses that I wanted to learn. I did counseling courses, I did transactional analysis courses, I did a yoga training. I've done so many things that, if I want to learn something, I'll find the person if I need to learn from a human and go and take that. Or if I wanted to learn crochet, for instance, YouTube taught me. So I feel like I have my journey alongside my kids has been learning what I wanted to learn from whichever source I needed to learn it, and maybe coming out with a certificate sometimes and sometimes not, just having the breadth of knowledge that I've gathered. And there's always been a slight niggling, like, oh God, I didn't finish my degree, but it's probably with the outside societal pressure of like, you need a piece of paper to prove that you have this knowledge or that knowledge. And I don't always now think that's true. Or I definitely
that piece of paper, I have no clue where it is. I just realized recently, I wonder if I can like apply for a new copy if I need it.
It's just if someone asks for it for proof that you know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what situation anyone would ask me for proof, but I actually just realized I don't know where it is, and I do not have a digital copy that I know of having, which, might have been smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning all the time. Was there in your question a little bit of the go out in the world and have a career kind of element? Because Charlotte is answering just like I would, I never stopped learning. I'm happy.
No.
Knowledge all the time. Was it about?
No, it's in the question that I think it is this about that you were on the path of going back to university, continue this life, which you, I think, I really like the picture said, a better version of my mom's life, a slightly nicer version, more connected on different levels. And it made me think about my own one, where I'm like, where am I on that level? I freed myself kind of young. I were going down the path everyone said I should till I was 15 maybe, and then I wanted to make art and projects and film, and my parent was like, you need to at least have a high school degree. I took that, And around 23, I had a crisis, and I was like, okay, maybe I should go to university. And I ended up not doing it because I got a job in the media industry, and have just worked ever since. Sometimes I have, but many years ago now, I have looked back and I've been like, oh, could it have been cool to have one of these kind of papers? But my track record of life is proof enough, and I'm turning 50 this month, and I talked with a friend who said that his friend said to him when he turned 50, it was Javid, said his
50?
No, his friend with the didgeridoo said to him, yeah, he said, when I turn 50, the good thing about that is you stop giving a fuck about what other people think.
I think I stopped giving a fuck a while ago.
Some of us do it.
I think it happens a bit earlier for women.
Gave a fuck now.
No, but men develop a little slower.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it is.
Excuse me.
But living homeschool mom life, as both of you do, and your husband work a lot from home, I work a lot from home. It's a very different life to what we have been brought up to looking at, and I still sometimes consider if I'm good enough at it yet. I still have these, oh, is it tick boxes? And part of me is like, maybe I should just chill even more and just enjoy life.
Or spoons.
No.
I love the spoons. I've got the collection is great.
For the listeners, Jesper recently took up whittling.
Yes.
And we now have a lot of lovely, beautiful handmade
25 spoons.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Okay.
I was just thinking, were you going into a space of talking about how it is to live a life that's different from everyone else, and do we see some sort of doubt? Is that where you're aiming at?
It's the doubt, and it's also what made us. Yeah, it's difficult to I will talk around it. I think all of us have grown up with parents going to work, with an idea of kind of what life is, or we had this image of how you live a good life, that you get a career, a house, or the detached house as in UK, and then that is the thing. What made us end there with this perspective on life? One of the things I know I've been attracted to most of my life is the people who are like artists and stuff, but it has also been with fear that they trusted life so much. I was standing in a fear space looking at them and thinking, ooh, can you just like go along, live your life, and then you make a project from time to time and do what you really love, and then go out there again. And that is me remembering back where I was, not where I am now. But I think it is, for many people, this more free life we live is maybe scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think it's scary. And I think lots of people probably think I'm crazy. Oh, I know they definitely do. And yeah, and I think also people have dropped away over the years as well. Like, I think relationships change, and even family relationships, I think, change. And I think it's probably through fear as well. Like their fear of how we're living might screw up the kids, but I know that like the way that I was brought up massively screwed me up. And that was a very on the outside, like all the kids in private school, lovely big house, nice cars, but everything brushed under the carpet, emotions never talked about, secrets, shame, everything. And I think a lot of the journey, I'm not just going to say unschooling because it's our life. A lot of our life journey and with our children has, for both of us, I think I can speak for Anthony too, has been an undoing of our stuff, if that, like, along the road. Because if you are with your children and your husband all the time, things are coming up all the time, and sometimes it's not very easy to deal with them, and it's like, I can't deal with this, I'm going to bed. I'm gonna go and just like cocoon for a bit because this is a lot. That's a more recent thing I've learned that I can do, is just take a step out of life for a couple of hours if I need to. But I think it's been an undoing of, yeah, the stuff that we carried through, or the stuff I carried through my life. Um, yeah. And I changed a lot with Anthony. Like, he did work 5 days a week in London until we went traveling. Our lives hugely pivoted in 2019. I was at home all day with the kids. I did all the cooking, the cleaning, the washing. And then sort of as the children numbers went up and he worked at home more, that the balance of life became a bit different. And that's been a massive adjustment of not really knowing. It's just been a bit of a, yeah, there's been lots of adjustments over the last 4 years with all the world stuff that happened, and it's been a different kind of time. Um, yeah, I don't really know.
I find it really hard to understand, or maybe I do understand, but when I look at how our life could have been with 4 kids in school and you and I going off to each an office every day, and you know, we would have paid off the mortgage by now. And I just, with the life we do live, I have a hard time understanding how people would have the time to do those things. Because the importance of the things we do instead, the things that fill up our life, the thousands and thousands of hours of conversations we have with our children, and all the little things, all the little observations, the hugs, the little poems we read, I don't know, making the bed, and I don't know, and the big things, the adventures, oh, let's go look at that bridge or cathedral or a piece of art. They are so important. They are such a huge part of being and becoming what we want to be and who we want to become, and filling up the cup of life with, I don't know, the golden liquid of what's meaningful. And I see how, if I had that structure, you know, you're going here and I'm going there, and then we have to tick there's the dinner, and you know, and the yoga class and your violin lessons, and there wouldn't be any space to realize how important the other things are. And so, yeah, for the first 5, maybe 7 years, I would have frequent days of deep despair, of doubt and fear that we had just screwed up our children's lives, and I'd lost my opportunity to ever have a career and all these things, and too dependent on my husband and all the things. Now I'm completely beyond it, and I'm actually baffled and sad of how much life is being lost into this mainstream idea. That I had it just like you, I had it in my mind, this is how you do, so that's what I do. I'll do it in a feminist way, and I'll do it in a free way, and I'll do it in a hippie way, but I'm still doing it. And until I realized, oh, I'm doing the same thing, I'm just tweaking a little, you know, I'm painting it colorful, but it's still shit.
Yeah.
What Cecilia said made me think about 2 things. One is a little mad, which is it is not like we get exactly the double amount of time with our kids, but because there's weekends, but we get at least 8 hours more per day than many people with their children while they're growing up, while they're going through this enormous experience of becoming a grown-up, a young adult. And I mean, it is almost double amount of time if you also take in extracurricular curricular
And
stuff.
it's all the good hours.
And it's all the good hours. It's just a wild gift to give yourself, to have so much time together with your children. And I think that was the other thing I came to think about. One of the reasons it was doable, and it was a thing I have questioned sometimes, is the circularity of life, but how can I say, the idea that the week resets life, the idea that a day resets. The fun way of looking at it is in my internal calorie intake, I've like, it is only 24 hours. Then the next day, if I ate like too much calories yesterday, it's when I start the day after, it's kind of on zero. Then I can start all over. But life is linear. And I know you love the moons and circles. So I'm like, actually, no, but that's why I think we are cheating ourselves with some of the circular thinking that life repeats Monday to Friday, and then we like go to work Monday. And that's how I think that people can actually stand this life of it. So there's something in the circular motion where we cheat ourselves, but then there's also, we live on a planet that spins, there's the moon and everything. So I'm a little schizophrenic about how I feel about it, and I would open up the ball for thoughts from your side on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I don't see that as cyclical, the week. I know the week goes from Monday to Friday and then you have the weekend. I get the kind of reset that people will experience. Oh, we get our kids back at the weekend if they're not playing sport or they're not going to their friends' houses, because by the time they're 12 or 13, mainstream kids generally want to be like with their mates all the time rather than in the family home. That's kind of what I witnessed, like this whole like teenagers don't want to be around their parents, which I don't experience that. I mean, I know my kids are with you now, but that's just because they've got a like amazing opportunity to experience the world. But if we could be there too,
get away
it'd
from
be
you.
amazing. No, I'm aware of that, and that's why I'm kind of making that point. Like we have the opportunity to send them because like our younger kids do have clubs and commitments here, which is another conversation. It can be a bit of a tie at times, but I see that as quite a linear week, but it's more like a conveyor belt. I think there's just mold into the next, and yeah, I don't know if I'm answering this right. Like
I'm not sure what the question is either. And
yeah.
if I could go short, I know that we're talking a lot today, but I think your problem is not linear versus circular. The problem is the idea of reset. Nothing resets.
No, but I think
it's all one flow.
That we use the weeks and the weekends makes has this inbuilt, oh, there's a reset and I start over on Monday and then I can change up because it's a new circle. And that I think is a lie.
Yeah, I suppose like that. I suppose if you're living a more mainstream life, like the kids are at school all week, you're at work all week, you all get together at the weekend, and then it's like, oh, that's over. We're going to go back to Monday again, and that's not the same in our lives. Like so the weekends have a slight little bit of difference for us, just because Anthony isn't actually on his phone working, whereas Monday to Friday, he's more inclined to be needing to be more working if he's got work on. That's kind of like the thing that I have to adjust to more.
Yeah, not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's just because his work is more, it is only really Monday to Friday. So there's just like a slight, it's not actually a shift that the kids notice, it's I notice with him being more here because his mind isn't with work. Like that's the shift. It's an energetic shift. It's not a physical one because he is here pretty much every day unless he has a couple of days in London. So it's a different thing. But yeah, we have a different rhythm than some unschoolers because one of my younger children, as you know, goes to like a forest school 3 days a week, which has been a huge adjustment. And I'm kind of not looking forward to tomorrow because it means we have to get up at a specific time and then drop her off and then pick her up. And it has that slight, it's not school when she's there, but the energy that I feel is a little bit like that school run of the dropping and then collecting my child. But I have no qualms about who she's with. And if she doesn't want to go, she doesn't go. And if the person who runs it is the most in line with my thinking that I would ever want someone to be, if my child's going to be spending quite a few hours a day in a forest building fires and playing with mud, like it's a cool thing, but it's a very different thing. None of my kids since we left the system like 10 years ago have done that, and it's been a huge adjustment of like for everybody, I think, because it has been like oh no, we can't do that because she's there. And the same with, two of my girls do cheerleading, which is so out of what I enjoy, but they do. And I have that balance between they love it and get so much from it, but I feel trapped by having to commit to it. And I think that's part of what the school was. I enjoy the freedom of, if I want to go somewhere, I'll just go. And that's what we've had for until nearly 2 years ago. For 8 years, it was just like, apart from the lockdowns, but it was just like, if I want to go somewhere, I'm just going to go. Or I'm going to move house, or I'm going to move country, so I'm going to just like, oh, where do you want to go? Oh, we'll go there. And it's like there's been a shift in the last couple of years, but we have also found community for the younger ones, and obviously the older ones, it's been different, and I've had to send them to like my daughter went to Laney to a teen retreat world schooly thing and met some of the kids who are now in Poland with her. So there's this like small community of world schoolers that they're now tapping into. And Freddie obviously wanted to go to HEF and then met you guys, and that's how we're here now. And it's our lives are changing through his connections, and that's just how I love life to work, that we want to experience something. We don't actually know what's going to come out of the choice that we make. We're just directed towards something, and then maybe our whole lives change, which happened in July or August when you saw Freddie and just said, can we come? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we didn't know.
Anthony invited first. He said it first.
I know, and he wants everybody to know that too. He's like, I did it, because I'm always like, I plan everything, and I make decisions, and everything we do is because of me. And he's like, no, but I told them they could come if they wanted to.
And
So,
you did.
You
They
did.
drove away from Scotland.
Yeah, and that's been a huge pivot. It's been such a huge, like, who knew that this was going to happen, and my kids would then be with you, and then we'd be going on and doing the next stuff we're doing around Christmas. Like, no one can plan that.
The thing is, so we're all freedom people, try to constrain me, and I'm a freak out, or I do something violent or cruel, or but when I in my mind think something is like holding me back, like you could think about the forest school or something. Even for us, it's hard to commit something in our calendar and say we're going there that week, and now I'm buying the ticket and I'm promising people I'll be there. I'm like, oh, but what about all the other places I could have gone? But I think the freedom that comes inside constraints is quite interesting. I remember when I had my first child, I was a single mom. I was 23 years old, and none of my equal-ish age friends had children or were anywhere near having children. And they were like, you're losing all your freedom. And when I had my child, I was so clear on who was missing out, and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
There were so many options for meaningfulness and joy and finding myself and seeing things clearly, spiritual life that came with having a child, that came with making a choice that stopped me from 10,000 other things. And so is in a way forest school, and so is in a way booking a place and deciding I'm spending 2 months with these people in Andalusia, and the plan was to be in Japan, which sounds quite more adventure-wise interesting, as I've been to Spain quite a lot already. But it's just so interesting how the basic idea of freedom is to leave all the doors open, not realizing that sometimes when we pass through a door, way more interesting and nourishing and amazing options are there. They are better. They are not as many, but they are better. And yeah, that's what happened with Anthony inviting us. And I would probably have planned to stay more than 5 days in Scotland. But I decided to cut that short because I could feel a spiritual pull. I could feel this is what we're doing. And the kids were very much, this is what we're doing. So yeah, it's just, I think we have to tweak that. Even us freedom people, I know that there are lots of listeners who have the same freedom urge. Sometimes committing into constraints is freedom, which is weird.
Yeah, but sometimes it's about growth though. Like there's growth in the constraints of like, well, why am I feeling a certain way? And I think there's also growth in commitment, which when we moved here, for me, it was about committing to an everyday life, which I've struggled letting go of like adventure, but trying to then find the things that fulfill me within that everyday committed life, like building community. Because circling back to where we started, like why did we go, why did I go, or why did we choose to go to Granada? It's because I was looking for community. I was looking for home. I was looking, and I know home is always within me, which is why I can feel at home absolutely anywhere. I can take my little things, and my kids have always said that, oh, you make something feel like home straight away. And that's, I think, a gift. I love to make things feel homely and for other people too. But I've always been searching for community and belonging, and now I'm half like split between like I love this settled community, but I found community with you guys now, which is a new thing, and that is going to be a more transient thing because we're not going to be together all the time, but you're out there and it's like, oh, we're going to travel more to see you and maybe send our kids to certain places to see you guys like we are now. And but it is I follow an astrologer in Australia called Tiani, and she talks about the magic in the mundane. And I can struggle with that, but also find complete like an utter beauty in that. Like if I'm in the right space, oh, I love doing the cooking and making the bed and hanging out the washing. But sometimes it can be like, I need more than just making the bed and doing the washing, and I want to go to like the other side of the world. But then it's like, well, why do I want to go to the other side of the world? What am I maybe trying to avoid that's inside of me? And that's been a big thing in my whole life. Like if I can go an adventure, or maybe I'm gonna feel better over there or doing that thing or with those people, rather than just sitting with my emotions that come up in the everyday mundane, sometimes exciting life, if that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense, and it points to one of my unschooling kind of mantras, the question everything.
Yeah.
If you go to the other side of the world, you need to ask the question, why do I want that? And sometimes it's because you have that traveler's, adventurous, nomadic urge to see what's behind the horizon, which is sometimes what it is. And sometimes it's because you think you'll feel better in another place, or you're running from something, or you're looking for something that might be actually in your local forest. You don't have to fly to the other side of the planet. So just the questioning and the level of reflection, I think also is the reason we were such great family matches, because we kind of have those kind of thoughts in our minds a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the opening the John Holt or one of the other books, and maybe a step further back, which is when I look at the life we lived, we had our two youngest in a Waldorf kindergarten.
Our then two youngest.
Yeah, our then two youngest, and our oldest was in like a private school that was very free and wonderful. And at some point, it begins to crack, you know. There and I'm considering now if what were the signs for us. I remember delivering Storm and Silke to the to the kindergarten, taking off their fingers from my arm and saying, go in there, and the person in there, the leader in there, saying, oh, if you leave fast, then they stop crying very early. And back then, and this I think is what I wanted to talk about, is all the self-lying, self-programming I went through to make myself feel, oh yeah, it's right, I just need to leave, then they won't cry. Where now I'm at, so but you don't want kids that don't feel their emotions, Jesper. So and why are you leaving them there? They're crying for a reason. Why do you not want to be together with your children? But I lived that life. I made those I changed the reality of what was actually there to make myself believe that what I did was okay. Did you went through a period of this, or did you see the scratches in the surface, or was it more sitting and looking out the window and thinking, hey, what is happening? Why should I?
I think we got lost in school for a couple of years. I'm not going to lie. Like I described that beginning bit of they were happy to go to Nana because they just felt like they were going to Nana at first, a year apart. And then, to be honest, by the time Freddie had gone through Nana, he was actually okay. Like he loves being around his peers. He's that kind of kid, a little bit like Leela. Like they love that yeah, the peers thing, and they always have, which is, yeah, Freddie kept his same friends from Granada all the way through to now. And no one else really did in my family. So he kind of just went through not too, there was nothing really rocking the boat. It was Arabella that was very much like, I think, trying to show me like, this is wrong. You're leaving me with wrong people. And I had a kind of I suppose like a spiritual mentor, a bit like a surrogate father person that I'd met somewhere along my life, who would come and stay every now and again from Scotland. Super spiritual guy, would like push my buttons of we tried in the beginning like the naughty step stuff with kids. I had no idea on parenting, so, and he once saw me do it to Arabella and was like, you go sit on the step, see how you feel. And like I never ever did it ever again. He was that kind of teacher who was like, experience what you're trying to put your kid through, and then like if you still want to do it, do it. And he checked, so he came and dropped Arabella at school with me one day and saw Arabella sort of like doing that whole like deer in headlights, not feeling safe. And then I was just crying and crying and crying. And he was he was the first person that taught me to question everything, but I didn't know there was another option. So I was like trapped in this cycle, which I suppose, going back to what you were saying about that cycle of the every week and then getting them back again at the weekend, I was trapped in school. I didn't know there was another option, and everybody around me, I was very young, like you, I was 24 when I had Arabella. So my friends hadn't had kids. Even when my kids were at school, they hadn't really started having kids yet. So everyone at the school was at least 7+ years older than me. And so I was having my 30th birthday when they were having their 40th birthdays. It was a very strange thing, but in a weird way, I felt like I was accomplished because the life that I'd been brought up in, if your children went to private school and you had a 4-wheel drive car and like you lived in a specific house, you were successful, and you were married, like that was success. So I still had this view of successful life being like children, school, the holidays every now and again, and it all being related to money. There was nothing about emotional maturity or like spiritual life. Or but then I think the looking at like my third birth changed me. I had my first home birth after trying to have two more, and she shook me up. She like shook up our lives. And then I had the like out the window thing not too far from where we're living here, and it was just like, this is not my life. So it was like, well, how do I change it? And then I think I kind of went mainstream, kind of went on a spiritual journey, had kids, got trapped in the mainstream, and then woke up from it again and came back to question everything, basically do what you want, try not to give a shit about what anybody else is thinking. And I haven't really looked back from that point. And Anthony's come along for the ride. Because it seems a lot in our circles that the women are leading the revolution of parenting and traveling and childrening, and luckily we're supported by these dudes that just crack on with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this whole, where's the freedom? Where's the drive? Why do we do this? Do we give a fuck? How did it change? It's a very interesting, very tangled theme of how to be in this life when we have all the basically obligations that come with having children, but are also on a personal journey. And I often say I feel like I'm running alongside a train. The train is just, I can't keep up with the demands on me. I have to be so smart. I have to be so strong. I have to be so spiritual, powerful. I have to be so present. And that train is just going. And when you think about it, it's more than one train, not necessarily going in the same direction. And we just have to try to keep up. And I find that, well, it is what it is. Most days I'm okay. Most days I'm just accepting that I'll never be sufficient. It will never be enough. I can never do it with a gold star, and I can just, yeah, try to accept the framework and try to question things and try to not spend my time being tangled up in things that don't matter, which sometimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a way that's what we've talked about today, how to untangle ourselves from that and stay in that space of just keep going, see if we can keep up with that train. At least it's our train. It's not mainstream train. It's
Yeah, and the train, and maybe each child's train as well, that what they want. And I think from witnessing your children and my children and them all together as well was such a beautiful thing. And just seeing that, and I've listened to others of your podcasts, and I think the theme that I hear through it is like providing that environment for children, so they can do the things that they want and feel the things that they want and be heard or be seen, and go down paths that aren't available to them if they are trapped in that everyday mainstream life. Like they can explore different avenues and like go traveling or stay at home or like spend time with another family, and just the learning that my older two will be getting from just living with another family without their parents for a month. We've never done that before, but like I'm not going to know the learning for years and years. Like that's just a life experience, and I think the environment that they all have is the making of whatever they will choose to become whenever they become, but they are already what they are now. And I think that's the difference between mainstream and non-mainstream. I'm not waiting for them to become who they are who they are. And it's just a journey, I think, like mine is too, like an unfolding. And I'm able to do that alongside them because they are who they are too, if that's making any
that
sense.
makes total sense. That makes total sense. And also, I mean, equally, we can talk about the learning that comes from going with another family away for a month to a different country. But I know that, yeah, that's part of it. But the main part is the fun we're having right now. That,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's unschooling life is about living now, not living for the exam, for the future, for whatever evaluation or job you could have later. And yeah, that's, for me, that's the balance. Of course, we have to think about that we have a future, not burn all of our money today or whatever. but in a way, and I am doing things with purpose, thinking about, I mean, I plan to live another 50 years. So I hope that my children will live even longer than that. And they have to do things, to make decisions that will affect their future. But at the same time, I think the most important thing is to fill up the moment and be able to be present in the moment. And yeah, in that moment, it is a lot of fun to have your teens with us. Thank you for letting.
Thank you for having me.
When I look at your children and our children, envy is the wrong word, but I see that some of the things I am working with still to delayer, to grow through, a master.
Yeah.
And I get all emotional when I think about it, because that is the true value with the time we can give them in those super strange and formative years that the teens are. They have time I didn't have, because I had so much I had going on. I was like swimming 3 times a week. I went to high school. I was had a big hobby, and man, there was no time to actually grow. And I'm turning 50, as I said, and I'm like, some of the stuff I'm learning now, I'm just like, oh, fuck it. They already know.
That's what's amazing about this life, that we're able to, whatever we have indirectly done for them, they are growing emotionally as humans in a way that I never could. And they will surpass us if they haven't done already in their like spiritual, emotional lives, because they have the space to do that. And that to me is the sole reason for living like this. Doesn't matter if they like work in a cafe or fix cars or do whatever they do. It's the emotional life that I was not able to mature and deal with my shit until still doing it now, like you said. But they can deal with things in real time in relationship with other humans. That is I think it's a gift. Like that is
beautiful to experience. It was wonderful to have
Yeah,
you on
thank you,
our
Charlotte.
podcast, and it will be the first of hopefully many more of these talks, also besides just you and us, that you also can share with other people. Thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.